to the top 3 broadcasts. So usually I don't lead these things. Usually they are a lesson that's being taught, some professional development, but we have something very different today. So we have Cap and Sergeant Garcia here to teach us about Air Force innovation and tell us about some programs. So why don't you guys both take a turn and introduce yourselves, explain what you guys do.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. Sergeant Caprio, go by Cap, age maintainer by trade, but I took a year off of that and was accepted to a nuclear fellowship from Air Force Global Strike Command. Then halfway through that, I got into innovation. Now I'm the superintendent of innovation for Dyess Air Force Base, and I teach it, I live it, I breathe it, and I invest other people. I invest constantly trying to find out people who want to go after it, and then building my cohort, my cadre, my fight club, if you will, fight club of innovation. And I brought my partner here, Dom, who I've adopted as my brother-in, and he's going to do the same thing.
So I'm Sergeant Garcia. I'm one of the installation emergency managers here at Dyess Air Force Base. I actually started, or like Cap said, he brought me on to his fight club back in February or January, and it kind of was like a wildfire, and it invoked a lot of passion. So it was a lot of things that I was already doing, but now his office provided an outlet. And so I kind of seized that and kind of clenched on with him, whether they wanted it or not. And so I've kind of been integrated with him and Major Bunker, kind of trying to foster this environment and be part of Cap's Whisper campaign, as he likes to say, right? To really get this growing and off its feet so we can really make it infectious to the rest of the installation.
Yep.
So what's the goal of the organization?
So the goal of the organization is to raise the ambient noise level is what I go with all the time. So I want to be able to instill a methodology and a mindset that anybody can be empowered, anybody can go after things, anybody can have effective change, right? They can't just change things. They can't just effectively change. They need to change things effectively, right? So raising the ambient noise is what I call about building everybody to create those conversations, those talking points, those questions, people asking why, how should this be done, because a lot of people go through things and they just go through the motions, right? So if I'm going to be here tomorrow, how do I build that inertia? How do I build that resistive force, right? Change comes from resistive force, or tension from all sides, if you will. So the goal at the end is to build a cell network of innovators across leveraging capabilities that we already have to then have airmen that are empowered. So no matter who takes over after me, let's say Dom is PCSing to Minot. So when he goes, I hopefully have created enough noise level and given him enough tools, enough skills that when he gets there, it'll be a wildfire that he starts up there. We want to grow, we want to educate, and I basically want to put myself out of a job. I don't want to be the person who everybody looks to do this, because if I can adequately raise the noise level of everybody, raise the awareness, get everybody talking about it, then there's no point for me to be there. So, and I just fade out, because the next person will do better than me. That's going to be case in point.
Which brings us to the point of this broadcast in the first place, is we're trying to raise that ambient sound level, right?
Yeah.
So what's a few examples of some things you guys have achieved, or things that have been innovated through your guys' program so far?
So it's quite a bit. My biggest, we say MVP all the time, it's a minimal viable product. So we have around 30 projects currently. We've brought in about $12 million into the installation, and that's what we like to call OPM, other people's money. So it's R&D research money, and it's also money from DoD and from big government that is there to build small business. So it's not like you could use this money for anything else. It's been there since the 70s and the 60s, but the way to access it has always been kind of eluded or cast in shadows, and people didn't really know how it worked. And with organizations like AFWorks, it's been brought to the forefront, right? So my biggest project is education, training, and we call it Leading for Innovation, L4I. So Leading for Innovation is a derivative of Hacking for Defense, which is driven by Stanford. So we have an installation commander who did a program, he did his fellowship, and he became a student. He saw that there was a viability and there was a feasibility to get, grow, and keep this mindset that you can change people and you can move people for the better, right? Because you just don't want them doing willy-nilly or spending this money on shiny things in the corner or massage chairs like for their end users. Like, there's things to effectively do this. So when we first met, the project was MVP of by himself, and then he met Major Bunker, and he met myself, and he's like, "Hey, these are two dudes that could probably go out there and instill this in other people and build it." So he let us grow. So what my biggest project has been is building that program. We went from just 5 people to we have 15, soon to be 20 graduates from Dyess, and then we have 10 graduates across the command, so across the nation from Air Force Global Strike Command. We've been funded $100,000 by AFWorks and $50,000 by Air Force Global Strike Command to make this a program of record at the MAGCOM. We teach it at the MAGCOM. We instruct. We do 5 weeks of instruction, and we are continually growing, iteratively changing people's mindset. So in about 3 months, we'll probably have anywhere between 60 to 120 new innovators out there trained lethally to go after like acquisitions such as Squadron Innovation Funds, SBIRs, which is Small Business Innovation Research Grants, same money that we talked about previously. And then other things like STTR, which is when you combine with a college downtown, you go other projects. That's my biggest project, right? That's the one I'm going after. Small projects that you might see around the base. So recently we did a Spark Tank. Some people are familiar with that. That came out of the office because we found more airmen to speak to change, right? Things that you might not see is age tracking, aerospace ground equipment. So 780 assets on the flight line. Back in the day, let me set the scene a little bit, right? So back in the day, you used to have a member in an office, 3 shifts, 24/7, aircraft don't stop. And he would have magnets and a board, and he would track on the radio every time a piece of equipment moved. The career field only had
Right.
tractors, right? So like because we were the only ones with tractors, the equipment was so heavy. Modern machinery isn't what it is today. One single person in an office, all the way up to about the 80s, could track where these 700 assets went. Time has evolved, machinery. Time has also changed the paradigm in which we exist in, right? So now it went from, let's say, 1 person in the office tracking, 3 to 6 drivers on the line, plus a supervisor to navigate around all those people, to now it's, we go to modern day, it is 3 people on the line. You might get 3 shifts out of that. Some shifts might be reduced to 2, and that's it. And now modern machinery, you have enough equipment to move anything. So I can't track it. So we created we paired with a company, SBIR. Tech Sergeant Cynthia Ward has received $1.2 million to create a Wi-Fi / RFI / GPS, depending on what capabilities are required in whatever domain you're existing in, to now track all that equipment anywhere. So you didn't have the jobs, so now I removed that time. So what else did they create now that I've given them all that time back? I'm just curious about it. I'm very passionate about that one.
And that's not even using Air Force money. That's using the SBIR funds. So it's solving an Air Force problem without even using any Air Force funds.
Mm-hmm.
No cost to the Air Force whatsoever.
Nope.
But solving a huge problem.
So an example like that reduces an untold number of man hours, makes things more efficient, and as time goes on, the Air Force and warfare has changed a lot. Warfare itself, the way it's conducted, has changed, and we need to constantly have a mindset of innovating and adapting to that.
Yep.
So it seems like that's the base of what you're trying to get is not a specific type of innovation, but it is having the mindset of innovation all throughout the ranks, because the level to which someone can innovate based on their position and job might be different, but everyone has the capability to innovate in the realm that they have control of.
Correct, and that's why we decided to roll out the 2-part process, right? So there's a distinction in the Spark Cell between getting the innovation funds to fund your project and what the L4I course is, the Leading for Innovation course is, right? So like Cap said earlier, we try to avoid innovation theater. Have you heard of that term? It's basically where people say, hey, I have an innovative idea because it's new or it hasn't been done before. We throw a bunch of money at it, and then really nobody wants to use that process or that tech that they're doing. And it doesn't last. It doesn't sustain. It's only good for a couple months or maybe a couple of years, right? So that's where L4I comes in. So L4I teaches those cohorts that we push through how to avoid innovation theater, really do a deep dive into what the true root problem is, right? And then now you have that feasibility, that sustainability, that viability for whatever that product is. So,
I've seen the innovation theater, and it's a real problem. I know that in my job, there's a system. I'm not going to name it, but it's a system we use for tracking all of our equipment. And then someone had the right idea to innovate, and they went away with that old system, and they replaced it with an identical system. I mean, it is the exact same system, and they just renamed it.
exactly.
So one of my favorite things for innovation, and so we got to give Major Bunkers credit here, is that how it's been done in the past and how it honestly has continued to be done until we can infect a mindset. Let's say you have a water bottle and you go, I'm going to innovate how to drink water. And then you come up with your idea. In the old system, you would be awarded somehow because you just came up with a new way to take care of it. But then when you would hand that project over to upper management, senior leadership, so on and so forth, to like research labs, your MAGCOM and higher, you'd get back a plastic bowl and be like, what is this? Well, you just said it had to hold water. You need to drink from it. Cool. I got you 1,000 of these. This is going to be great. You're going to wear, and you're like, this is not at all what I wanted. You're like, well, that's what you got for the next 10 years. Go for it. And then they leave. And then you're stuck there with the same thing that might even be worse off than you started from because you asked to innovate and you put an idea forth, create this stigma for it.
And really, what you really needed was a pill that made you not thirsty in the first place.
Too close. You're too
Right?
close to the problem.
You're too close to the problem.
So we've removed that aspect that everybody tries to solve their solution. We're a solution-driven society. I'm sure throughout your career, somebody comes up to you and they tell you that you need to solve this problem. And if you didn't solve that problem by the end of the day or end of the week, that was your job. That was your rating. That was like everything that encompassed around it. We're trying to train people that it's okay. Create habits, right? Culture is a byproduct. You don't just enforce culture. Culture is a byproduct of habits, empowerment, decisions, letting somebody go do something and letting them fail forward, right? So if you can continue to do that, you can actually make that change. And then you won't end up with that bowl. Like, what are you going to do with this bowl? Like, if you remove the person from the problem, you define the problem, and you define your perfect end state, and where we come into play, we switch it up. We don't go out and educate ourselves on how to create those solutions. We leverage current systems like SIF, SIBR, STTR. We find companies with these huge brains, and they tell us like, oh, I can make this pill. You take this pill, you'll never have to drink water throughout the entire day. I would have never came up with that. So I would have just made the bowl work, or used my hands because I didn't want to use the bowl.
So your program is not only about creating a culture of innovation, but also helping people work through problem solving and actually finding workable solutions, more productive solutions.
Well, and that's what it is, right? So your solution is actually a byproduct, right? Just like diesel fuel is a byproduct of refining gasoline, but it's still functional. So we don't teach developing solutions. We teach how to find the problem, how to identify those people that are affected and see what their pains are, right? And then use the minimal viable product, the MVP, to alleviate those pains. Because like Cap said, it might not be a bowl that people want to use to drink out of. Maybe it's something that doesn't make them thirsty at all. But you wouldn't know that until you actually, one, identified the real problem, and then two, got out and talked to those people. And that's one of the things we do is around Dyess Air Force Base, they might recognize a lot of people in civilian clothes come to the work centers doing interviews with all types of people. And that's one of the things we encourage is get up, get out, talk to those end users, see what they really want, right? So now we can develop not a solution, but an MVP to really help them so it's sustainable.
That's another great example thing to note was so I used to work in OT&E for my type of job, and one of the problems was we had companies that got a contract with the military to produce a thing, right? And they were given requirements for that thing, and they thought they built something that met those requirements. And then they brought it to us saying, hey, look at this brand new thing we designed. It's so great.
You're going to want it.
You're going to love it. It does all the things you asked it to do. And they were like, this is terrible. You did not consider about how we actually need to use it in the field. Yeah, it looks great on paper, but you don't
know it. And then where's the capstone to it? Yeah, well, here's 1,000 of them.
Yeah, the problem is they never included the end user in the design and the local testing of it.
Right.
To the point that they spent millions of dollars on a useless piece of trash.
So everything we've delivered, so I say we're around 30 projects, we've never used any money. So the only money we've used at all let's say we build on education, right? Because we want to build this culture. Even with the course, I don't care if they come up with a solution. I want them to know this methodology at the end, because whatever they take that time now and they go to reiterate when they get back, who knows what's going to happen when they go back in their work centers.
So a really good example that I like to use all the time too, it's not just for innovation or grandiose projects or Air Force changing solutions or things like that, right? It could be something as simple as you using that process in your day-to-day. And the
Yes.
example that I use is the installation emergency manager. I went through the cohort in February right before COVID hit everywhere, right? And as the manager, my cohort got cut short and I had to go straight into the EOC operations. But knowing what I knew from learning those lessons, right, through L4I, I actually was able to do a lot of my job as far as COVID, because everything was unprecedented. So we were essentially flying the plane as we were building it, but using that process, that lean method, that mission model canvas, right?
Agile thinking,
Right? Rapid iteration, which is actually crucial within a global pandemic. I was able to hopefully provide some type of planning and sustainability for the installation to kind of build on that to get through the pandemic and build a lot of those systems and processes as we were seeing those issues from the pandemic affect Dyess Air Force Base in the city of Abilene. So it wasn't for like a big tech product or something that I personally would benefit. It was actually something in my day-to-day job. Timing was perfect that really helped me get through something like that.
And then how do we find something revolutionary, right? So you asked before, what's the goal? So honestly, the goal, so what was the difference between the aircraft when it was created and then warfare? Somebody came up with the idea that, well, if I have an aircraft, I can put bombs on it and I can drive or fly it somewhere else and change the war path. We weren't just meeting in a location anymore. That became iterations of technology, and then a policy and a mindset collabed, right, to create something revolutionary. So how do we get to something that's revolutionary? Innovation needs to lead to us continuing to be the dominant global force, right? So my idea, my goal, this is something that I'm passionate about, is if I can get enough people and build that noise level and get enough people talking about it, enough people thinking this way, that the next, I say generation because I'm going to go with generations of people who are doing things like this, not generations as an age sense, because we have no rank, we have no barriers, we have no age gap. There's no prequal to become part of L4I, right? Come as you are. If you're open and you're looking to go after something, do it. But if I get enough of those people, it's going to be somebody random in the room just going, like when we go to the moon, right? How are we going to take all this stuff to the moon? And somebody random walked up and was like, what if we just drop the extra rockets? That was revolutionary, right? If I get enough people that are thinking that way and I get them together, somebody in the room somewhere is going to say something and be like, oh, we have it. Oh my God, that's it. Today we had somebody who talked about on a project, I thought this was revolutionary, the sponsorship program.
Yes.
The issue with a spouse sponsorship program is that they're looking for a realtor. At the end of the day, all the issues that happen with spouses don't communicate, or they communicate too much, or there's too much information, not enough information. I know this club, I know that club. But really, when they move somewhere, they're looking for where can they live, how do they take care of their kids, what is the community like, and what are the schools like. That's a realtor. So if you were to define what a job should be, this group literally took a step back and was like, if we want to make spouses happy, we need to define a job that's more like a realtor, but it's represented in the Air Force paradigm. So that's week 2. They have 3 more weeks to go. So who knows what it'll be at the end. It might be a blow up, like you pour water on it and this thing pops up that has fresh towels when you show up. I don't know what they could end up with, but that's where they're at right now with week 2.
That sounds fun.
and that's what we look for, right? We look for those sparks, those aha moments, and then we feed it so we can perpetuate that through everything, everybody, really.
The end goal is to be revolutionary, but we're ways from it, and that's what it is.
It is.
So, Airman Snuffy in his or her career field has a bright idea. Thinks, if we only had this new widget that could do this new thing, it would make all of our lives easier. What does Airman Snuffy do? Where's Airman Snuffy go to present that idea?
There's 2 things you can do. Let's say it's Dyess Air Force Base. We have a cohort of 20 L4I grads. Whatever unit they're in, there's enough people that are advocating and aware to help them through it, to either guide them to an L4I grad, because I'm looking for a force multiplier. That person can then sit down with a grad and be like, and work through the process. If they don't exist in another base, then they can, like, let's say we're at a base and there are no grads, then they can come up to their Spark cell. That can happen anywhere. Spark cells exist all the time. Right here, right now, they can get an L4I grad, or they can come directly into my office. I don't have a screen door policy, as I like to call it. We have an open door, but I will tell you, if you walk in and we're teaching a lesson, you're a part of it, 100%. John, how many times have we had people walk into our room, we just came to talk about something, and they stayed for hours because they were part of the lesson?
They were. We actually had one of the BadgeCom PA personnel that were there doing something unrelated, just happened to be there when we were there at Barksdale last week, and she saw how impassioned we were, and then she sat in through day one, right, of the course as we taught it, and she was so ingrained and so passionate. She was a non-interested party. She actually is here now going through the cohort as a student. She was able to get that approval to come and do that because she was so passionate just after one day of being involved.
She was covering the course, and she was like, who are these crazy dudes from Dyess who got funded to come teach a MagCom course and instill their mindset across the command? It's a tech sergeant and a major. Like, why would that be a thing? Who lets those people do that? Who lets a tech sergeant write a syllabus and then present it to a general and be like, hey, this is a thing? And then she showed up and she goes, can I be a part of it? We're like, we have plenty of space. If we get approved, went through it, and now she's in it. That was Dom's team, so we switched teams. Mm-hmm. I will say on record, recorded, that he did an amazing job. And right now in week 2, his team is where most teams sit at like week 4. And it's like the passion that she's brought, her ability to communicate, and their ability to reach out to other people and interview, right? PA, who would have guessed? So has shown their thought process to be so expansive and so amazing. I can't wait to see what they come up with at the end.
And so to kind of circle back to your original question, that's what this course and that's what CAP and Major Bunker's office is there for, is to circumvent that first line supervisor or that chain of command opinion of what they think is innovative from their airmen or their personnel, right? To circumvent that, go a different avenue and be completely autonomous with that, link them up with either funding, expertise, mentorship, whatever they need to really foster that. And that's part of the culture shift, right?
We have a cool thing we call the 20%ers. So a lot of airmen have ideas. A lot of airmen don't view the Air Force how we view the Air Force. I'm sure there's been times in your career where you've brought stuff up and somebody hammered that nail that was sticking out. Do your job. It worked before. Continue to do it. It'll be fine once you're gone.
And it kills that spark, right? You have that spark, that passion, and it just kills it like that.
My memory for a situation is
preach to us. Let's get it in a therapy session.
There is a 5-cent washer if you buy from Home Depot, and they sell them to the Air Force for $40 a pop.
So we figured that out when we explored the jammer problems. So yeah, so
and they mail
like
them to us triple wrapped individually.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I don't know. Then those triple wrapped packages are then put into a gigantic box and shipped to us. A box this big. I'm putting my arms out as far as I can stretch them. And really, it's only 100 small 5-cent washers.
Yeah.
That could have been in a small bag. You wasted like probably $40 to $60 in shipping cost from the manufacturer.
Can I tell you, as the Air Force, we have the ability to 3D print metal washers right now that are aircraft certified and ready to go. Eglin's doing it.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Right. So we are wasting so much money on what is such a inexpensive and relatively unimportant part.
You're on it. Like that's what it is. So we take this concept. We find somebody like you, right? You the system has shown you that. I'm sure something came up when you tried to preach to it. Somebody just told you that it's what it is, it's what it's going to be. Stop complaining about
because
it.
Because that's innovation based, right? Because good ideas are not based on how factual the idea is. It's based on how useful the idea is, right? Yeah. Or at least it should be.
And it doesn't need to be complex. It can be simple, right? So we take airmen like yourself and we call it 20%ers. People who have that idea and they're passionate. So when Airman Snuffy shows up, I will 100% cultivate his idea. Any L4I grad will cultivate his idea. And then we'll sit back and watch. There's a training piece. There's a piece about it where we interview. We sit back and watch how they take it. Are they receptive to the knowledge? What's their body language? What's going through? There's a big piece of it. If this person takes the idea, some don't, and then it moves forward, that we then offer them an option, and we call it the 20%er. So 20%ers work 1 day a week in our office. And we have Airman Sloan from the Air Traffic Control Tower, and we have Airman Sahonis, who's a crew chief. And Airman Sloan was passionate about an app. that can't be solved in a day, and that can't be written in 3 days. We saw the passion, the drive, and her ability to learn, and her intellectual qualities that she had. And we asked her group commander if she could be a part of it. She is our 20%er on Tuesday. She comes in, the experiential knowledge that she learns from talking to us, sitting in our meetings with the ManageCom, sitting in the meetings with StrikeWorks and AFWorks and all these other agencies, being a part of our business relations, seeing how contracts are written, joining meetings with us at the wing. She rides shotgun. And then all in doing so, we hooked her up with a major from Whiteman Air Force Base who's already working her app in the innovation space that's funded, and now she is plugged in, and she does it. It's only 1 day a week. You can do all that with 1 day a week. Airman Sahonis is a pro video game player. He comes in, I let him run software, I let him build VR, I let him run applications. He came up with a system. I have a room. It's got 6 sleds, 6 aircraft simulators in there. And he came up with a software system 1 day a week, right? That's all he spent on it, where he built a system to control every computer in the room from one computer displaying in the corner. Not like you reach in and can move the mouse and stuff, where he has duplicate screens of everything going on a large screen in the room, and he built the software for it 1 day a week. He's done a lot of other stuff too, but that's what I can highlight right now.
And like Cap said, they're now force multipliers. Now they go and they foster that type of thinking, right, within their work centers. And they're so young right now, too, as far as the Air Force career goes. Like, think about that culture shift, right, and how infectious they can be, passing that on. Like you said about things that we mentor, those personnel with body language, delivery, things like that, how to think. That goes into what we did with the Spark Cell, right, or the Spark Tank. So for the Spark Tank, every person that submitted an idea, the ones that were chosen, were actually paired with a mentor and a coach.
We might have to cut back and say what a Spark Tank is. Are you familiar with a Spark Tank?
I'm familiar, but let's assume the audience doesn't.
Okay, go ahead.
Shark Tank. You come up with an idea, you got a panel of judges, they hit you hard, they hit you fast, just like sharks, and they rip you apart. And at the end, they either fund you or they tell you get the hell off stage. So we do the same thing. We put a bunch of colonels, a bunch of chiefs, command chiefs, and you come up there with your idea, and we hope that it's compelling, not just interesting. But to get there...
Yeah, so we paired up all of the submissions, right, with a coach and a mentor. So it was myself, Cap, Major Bunker, and
Staff Sergeant
Strickland, right? And so for a week prior, we bring them in and we just coach them, right? We tell them maybe we should work on this, or maybe we should present it this way, because like Cap said, we want it to be compelling, right? Because once you get that emotional buy-in, like you have it, you're hooked. So that's what we did. We brought them in, we coached them, we mentored them. How should your body language be? How should you deliver this?
And what is a pitch, right?
So what is a pitch?
Your washer is a prime example for what to go after as a pitch. So if I set somebody on stage and they want to 3D print metal washers that are aircraft serviceable, I'm going to send you on stage. How long have you been in?
I've been in for 12 years.
So, and then you've worked your primary duty. I will have you go up there and be like, I've been in the Air Force for 12 years. And I've gotten all these awards. And you know how I do it? Well, I go up and I order this 12-cent washer. But I actually pay $46 for it. And you know what? I order 100 of them because I'm not sure if I'm actually going to remember where I put them. I'm going to have some in my locker for later. And when it comes in, don't worry. It doesn't come in a nice little bag where they're all in there. It comes in 12 separate boxes that I paid for shipping for every single box. Because I'm an aircraft, I expedited that shipping. So it gets here tomorrow. And you know what? I've been awarded for that. I've been recommended for a promotion for that. And I tout that amongst my other airmen and my subordinates. And I tell them, this is how we do business. That would be your pitch.
That's great. My approach was to go to my commander and say, sir, we are wasting $4,000 a month on these goddamn washers.
Where does that get you? Cool.
Not anywhere.
That's interesting. But I want to make it compelling.
Right.
Hopefully you can kind of see everything comes full circle with the course, how we cultivate. The Spark Cell, we saw these struggles and the strife across everywhere because we're plugged in. So we know what other bases, not just what's going on in our MAVCOM. And they've all had this issue. They end up with something shiny in the corner. Nobody knows how to use it. And it comes from maybe that one commander that listened to you was like, wow, why are we doing it like this? Because it was interesting enough. But we try to always make it compelling, and we're trying to make that mindset so that you find something that has enough inertia or has enough change, and you find it like when somebody goes, where's the product market fit? Why didn't I have this yesterday? Why didn't I come up with this? Is it really that easy? If you hear those terms and they lean in, you know that you figured out what innovation is. Difference between being an inventor and an innovator. An inventor came up with the light bulb. An innovator, like Thomas Edison and Tesla, found a way to plug that into your gas plumbing system and show you that it exists in a current paradigm. And then they gave it easy, accessible, they made it viable, they made it feasible, and they made it scalable. So it was easy for them to do.
And what's even more special about this, right, is Cap likes to say it all the time, but people like us exist everywhere across the Air Force, across the DoD, right? So him and I are not special, right? There's Cap and Doms at every single base, but really it's bringing this program together and cultivating that culture, having enough faith to let those airmen, right, big A airmen, off the leash so they can do these things.
Yeah. I believe that we're overqualified for the tasks that we have, not because the tasks are easy. The tasks are very hard. We're so skill oriented and we're so well trained. The Air Force is taking care of us. The writing is done appropriately, the training is done appropriately, but then we on the side have to go get education. We have to go get skill sets. We have to go to these management schools. We have to go to these leadership schools. We have to get these licenses. But in our actual job, we've taken the time, we've done the deployments, we've done the TDY, we have it. But then we have all this other stuff too on top to make us competitive for our careers. But I don't have an outlet for you to go use those things. So I'm trying to give you that outlet. I'm giving you this thing, and I want you to go do it. And I'm just going to say, make a decision and do it.
Okay. So for Staff Sergeant Stuffy, who's listening to this, what would you say is the first step, or what should they do to get themselves or their airmen involved in your program?
So right now, we're working with StrikeWorks in our MAGCOM. So Air Force Global Strike Command has an innovation hub called StrikeWorks. It's at I got to remember this name. It's called the KIC, but it's the Cyber Innovation Center in Bossier City. They have a website. That website is strikeworks.com. Super easy. There is every quarter the class is held, and there is an application process. You go on there, you fill out application. It's really, really hard. There's a lot of things you got to do, and it takes a long time. It's not. What is the only thing that we ask for?
It's an essay, right? It's a 2-paragraph essay, and it's what is your why? And
Tell
it could be
me
anything.
how you answer why.
What is your why?
That's it. It's a 2-paragraph essay, and you say, and all I'm asking for is tell me how you answer why. That's the only thing. Put it in the box.
Yeah.
So, and then we reach back afterwards.
And what does why mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
That's completely up to you.
How long the paragraphs are, what format you want to use, who signs it, how you sign it, what you put on there, do you use MFR, what color it is.
Yeah.
It's all determined by you. So figure it out. Make a decision. Press forward. So that's it. That's the entire way to get into it.
That's awesome.
And if people are stage fright, they can also go directly to the Rapid Capabilities office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just walk in there or give these guys a call and then just ask the question, right? Start with asking the question, and everybody is more than willing to help because everybody involved with this program is gained a passion for it that's unbelievable.
We've empowered. We've created a culture of change, right? Culture of innovation. How do we do it? It's a byproduct of empowerment, understanding that you can make a decision, understanding that you're valued, understanding that you're heard. So you take all of these different pieces together, and you obviously raise the ambient noise level, raising the piece on, so everybody's talking about it. You get Dom. That's what it is. You get this guy in the corner.
Nice. It's too kind.
And that's it. And there's more out there. We're not special, and there's a ton of us. We hire the same people, so it's out there for you to go get.
I look at the current world we're in, and as our career fields get more technical, and as we are required to be more flexible to continue to protect our country, I see the idea of having an innovative force is not just being important, but being necessary and needs to increase exponentially. So I really value what you guys are doing. Do you have any more examples of things that have been innovated locally that might, spark the imagination of those listening right now?
Ooh, should we go after it? So currently we're working a project. So GPS, if we go to war and GPS gets taken out.
When it does get taken out.
When it gets taken out, right? So, or when your data link cable at your shore gets cut. So when GPS gets taken out, what are you going to do? How are you going to get anywhere? Everybody's so dependent. So my wife pings me all the time. I'm so bad with directions. I have no idea where I'm going ever. Like, I got a lot of stuff in my head. Directions has never been one of those things. So we are linked up with a company right now. Again, we have a SBIR Phase 2, so Small Business Innovation Research Grant to build a small business and do R&D. And we are planning on removing GPS as a necessity from aircraft. So the process is we scan ground maps, sky maps, aerial views, everything, and we create a game system of a global world, and we run iterations for that aircraft to then fly through iterations, right? So that we can have a camera system that's mounted on the airplane, solely self-sustained, not plugged in whatsoever, and it can look at the ground and tell you exactly where you're at. So GPS is now null and void. And it's small. With technology these days, solid state drives, terabytes, the terabytes can fit into like your pocket. Before it was like, I remember having the little hard disk, or what is it called? The small disk drive for
floppy disk.
like, well, have you ever seen the Nuke floppy disk? They're ridiculous. But like the little disk drives that were like, I was like, oh yeah, I got 32 megabytes on this. Yeah. And I was like, I could put whatever I want on this. This is crazy. And then now I buy a little solid state drive, and I'm like, oh, this is 6 terabytes. And this is literally smaller than my phone. So we can store information and do that stuff. Now I can put in the maps. So we got rid of GPS. That'll come to fruition. EOD robot. So we were able to create a EOD robot, and then nuclear material is, so I say those two things hand in hand. So nuclear facilities use cameras to move around in secure facilities where humans cannot be, because radiation will kill you. It's really not that hard of a scenario.
Hurts bad.
It hurts bad. And we use black and white cameras and little handheld devices to move cranes around, to pick up material, to take off bolts, to use tools. EOD robot, their entire job in EOD is to disarm bombs. They use a camera system that isn't even close to what's on your phone. And they go up and they open up zippers and they defuse bombs and they take things apart. You would think they would have a better system, right? We linked up another SBIR Phase 2 with the same company that does NFL sideline imagery, like 4K stereoscopic imagery, but they do a 30-second delay, right? So we were like, EOD robot can't have 30-second delay. So we have the first ever Dyess Air Force Base stereoscopic vision. So that means it has depth perception. It's just like looking through your own eyes. 4K resolution, instant access, no delay. You can operate a robot and look at this headset, and you can just move things around. And it's like you're sitting there on the robot watching.
You'd be amazed how many jobs are done in the Air Force / military with the effective visual capabilities of someone who's almost blind.
Yeah, right?
That is the best way to put it. We're actually trying to advance that project at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, because a big issue with that is if tracking isn't appropriate or you have no line of sight, motion sickness gets really bad. So we've been able to we're linking up with another company who's going to take all that technology and put it on a flat screen, so you don't even need to wear a headset. We've also created engine test cell training. When you remove an engine from an aircraft, you need to certify that engine before you put it on an aircraft. The only way to do that is to run it into this facility. It costs about $760,000 in 6 months to train somebody on how to do this process. We've been able to fully duplicate it, get it approved by ATC, and have this program that it takes about 2 weeks in the simulation to run it, and it only costs. And then you do a field test afterwards to see if the person go through the procedures. We did a proof of concept, so we had the 2 guys who designed the program. They spent 2 weeks in their sim, and then they did all their quals, so like their emergency testing, make sure if something happens they know where to go, and then they went in the engine, a $5 million engine, $5 million facility, and they flawlessly ran it and became engine certified. So in 2 weeks and $10,000, because we had to pay for fuel. So we reduced a 6-month, $1 million training program down to 2 weeks, $10,000 for fuel. Trying to think of some other ones off the top of my head.
If you drill down, right? So remember at the beginning of the podcast, we said that not every idea has to be like grandiose, game-changing, and that's the distinction between innovation and invention, right? So, for example, the 2 Spark Tank submissions that we had there on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So one was a water fountain for our security forces guys, right?
Yeah.
So these security forces guys were, they're on patrol or they're at their post and they don't have access to water, right? Or they're spending copious amounts of money getting their own water sources.
Change the role. You're the security forces guy. You're the commander, and I come to you and I go, I want a water fountain.
It sounds like,
You just laugh, right?
yeah, it sounds like, yeah.
So sometimes answering the question, like, why is this even a problem, right, is sometimes a solution in itself. So they submitted it to the Spark Tank, and it got funded for water fountains so they can come and fill up their jugs and stuff, right? So,
Bring the solution to the end user. You said it before. Nobody ever does that.
Which is crazy, and that's the innovation part, right? They just wanted water fountains. So, like if you think Tinder and Bumble were thirsty, like, we just got to get these guys some water. Poor security forces, right? And then the one on the other side of the spectrum, right? So Matt Sergeant Day from the 317th, who was actually the grand winner of the Spark Tank, actually submitted a commercial off-the-shelf solution. End-to-end encryption, can be fully classified, capable, mesh network in a box. Yeah, exactly. So
It's literally like because we're video only or sound only. It's literally a tiny box that can do everything that you would want because technology has changed, and it's out there
and
it's
they land
accessible.
in LZ's austere locations. So the problem is, how do I get the data to my guys right from these austere locations? So they can just go take a box, put it in the plane, land in the austere location, link them up, and then now they have instant communication, data feeds, end-to-end encryption.
That is great.
We built on that this week in this room, and we had a meeting. Another $1 million program that we had was there's a company that once you have that box, then how do you get it securely to other people like in your area? They have a little machine that you set it up by itself, and it literally drives and it paints a fiber optic cable
On top of pavement.
on top of anything.
Anything.
And so you have this box hooked up. You have you have a router, right? I'm actually not very tech savvy because running an innovation office. You have your box where all your information's coming through, and you hook up your fiber cable. And this little machine, you tell me where it has to go, and it literally drives 1,000 feet. It's 1,000 feet an hour, and it just and it prints and lays out material. And if it's secure, you can't get into it. It's like 280 psi. Like to even break through it, and it just prints it and runs it to wherever you got to go. And on the other side, you pull the cable out and you plug it in whatever you have, and now you have a secure network. And you could do that anywhere.
No digging, no tunneling.
Yep.
Nothing.
That's all. That's all just from us. Like just sitting here, like people come up with ideas, and we curate the idea. And we go, well, what? Tell me your dream end state. Don't yes but me because the AFI or we don't have enough money or nobody's gonna approve this. I want your yes and what if we did this? We did that with the DFAC.
The DFAC.
Everybody always comes up with a DFAC. The food is gross. Yes, but I'll never afford to do this. Or yes, but we'll never be able to do this. And we're like, well, what about yes and? And we came up with an idea that we're looking to pitch later about what if one day a month you have a special chef come in. Not only you have to pay for the chef, but everybody from base is going to want to go to the DFAC, and you fund your own DFAC.
So I have a funny story about this actually.
See how this snowballs, right? It snowballs into ideas.
So,
it's infectious.
At another base, there was a services tech sergeant who was also a 5-star chef.
Ooh.
And he loved cooking. It was his passion. And in services at that time, I think still today, there's a lot of restrictions on you have to follow exactly the recipe card.
Yep.
Right? And he's like, wow, if I make it with this recipe card, this is going to taste terrible. That is always tastes terrible. So he
But it's always tasted terrible.
seasoned things correctly. So food for 6 month period tasted great. it was wonderful. The best food I ever had at DFAC for that 6 month period until he got caught and punished.
Really?
They punished him for making good food.
And that's unfortunate, right? And that kind of is a testament, right, to the
That's the system we're in.
the self-barrier culture that we've created, right? We've become so risk adverse because we're afraid of failure. But historically, your failure is what has brought you evolution and progress.
Right.
So we teach not to be
We got to give him
risk-averse.
credit. You got to give him credit. So again, looking at Major Wedge Bunker, is
That guy, yeah.
all progress is experimental.
Yes.
So he preaches it. I'm sure somebody else said it, but he preaches it. So all progress is experimental. You need to understand how you can leverage risk with your skill set. So I'm sure that if he had maybe a bigger view, that we could have helped him leverage his risk a little bit harder by setting his skill set on the table. This is what I can do for you. And be compelling when he came to his commander. Instead of just going, this food's gross. I don't want to make it like this. The commander's like, I don't have time to deal with that. But what if he was compelling? What if he was pitch coached? What if it worked through? What if you had the mindset to be like, well, if I do this, these are now the tertiary, Dom always says, the puddle effect. So if he makes good food, man, you left your job, the DFAC supported you on the line, our DFAC helped you do your job. What other things are happening? Because you're not worried about food anymore.
What are those ripples, right? That ripple effect or butterfly effect, if you will, down the road for not only you, but everybody else.
Yeah, so this guy had a good idea. His execution was bad because he just did it on his own. He had good ideas, though, and he could have gone about it in a more constructive way. But during that period, people were flocking to the DFAC when it had been, people had avoided gotten fast food before. Mm-hmm. It was, people had loved the DFAC in that period, and more people were going. So the mission was being more effective, right? So,
and that's one of the problems, though. Being risk averse, you limit your risk, but you also are almost a self-fulfilling prophecy for stagnation, right?
Yes, 100%.
And so that's how you get rapid iteration, is by not being risk averse, taking those risks, and then having that rapid iteration.
We think that people can be paralyzed by risk in a lot of things, but don't get me wrong, there are career fields and there are things where it's life and death, where you have to do them by the book. Yes. There's a time and place for everything. My course teaches one thing. It is a methodology. It is not the end-all be-all. I'm not giving you the golden ticket at the end of the day.
It doesn't replace CPI.
No,
it does replace all those other methods, right? It's just another option to use.
Trying to give you a faster way to make the decision, because it's all about, we have all this information and all these abilities, but I feel like we've gone away from the actual way to make the decision. So there are so many things out there. We're not replacing anything. We just want to help people make the decision faster and how they should get there.
All right. Well, I am thoroughly impressed and interested. So
Are you going to sign up?
Yeah. We got another one. I told you it snowballs wildfire.
Oh, I'll tell you, you've already sold.
Can you feel the passion?
Yes, I can. I hope everyone listening at home can also feel the passion. So one more time, say who you guys are and give your last invite for people to come and join you or check out your stuff.
I'm Tech Sergeant Andrew Caprio. I'm at Dyess Air Force Base. Please come out and sign up for my class. Come to Rapid Capabilities. Come to the IG building. Just come chat. Anything you want, I will try and fill a need and see where we can go with it.
Same. Tech Sergeant Dominic Garcia over at the Emergency Manager Office. Feel free to send us emails if you guys hear this podcast and you guys are interested at any time. You can find us on the Global. I spell my name with a C, not a Q-E, because I'm a boy, not a girl. Okay, just throwing it out there.